I played around with PolyMesh this morning, and you might notice it says circle mesh here. So this is a work in progress, and Cam probably has to change that preference so it saves out with the same name as the app. But this is the fourth image I created with this. You can tell that right there. And don't worry about filling up the entire, well, let's jump over here to the Finder and double click on PolyMesh. This is where it loads. Don't worry about filling up this entire area, or don't worry if it overlaps and goes outside this area because it's still saved. So let me explain real quickly. This is a PolyMesh file, but you notice that nothing got highlighted in here, and that's because there's a clipping mask on here, and that's to protect all that information if it falls outside, that it's only displayed here. But got a little secret for you. Coming close. Here's the secret. Always, always, always select this path on the outside, right click on the inside and say release clipping mask. Then click away to deselect, then click on this edge to select that mask and hit delete. If this deleted as well, you weren't paying attention, you didn't follow instructions, back up the video and do the same thing. And the reason for that is right now you can select the entire object, and then we can do all kinds of other fun stuff, including what I want to do is delete that little circle in the center. But that little circle is the very first thing that was drawn, so that means I can't select it. If I come here, everything else is on top of it. However, if I go in the layer stack and I want to get down to that very first object that was created, I just unfurl by clicking on that little twirly, pull down, and then click on the meatball on the bottommost layer, and watch what happens out here when I click on that meatball. Hey, there's that little circle. Now I can hit delete, and I don't have to contend with that object that was created first. As far as I'm concerned, the first object that's created, I haven't really fallen in love with. But, hey, I've only done 4 of these, so what do I know? There's a lot to be discovered here. So I don't want to mess with that anymore. I'm going to put my layers back, dump them down here and move them over, and back in business here. Now, this object right here is vector-based, so it can be resized. I'm going to switch over to Photoshop, and this is what I did with it. Now, you might say, hey, this is green. How come that's not green? Look, you can control colors. You can control so many things in both Illustrator and Photoshop, and I want to show you some tricks that are involved in this, but this is going to be a long, convoluted series of videos because this is going to help introduce you to some of the same strategies I use, excuse me, with virtually all of the generative apps. And every image is different, so you take different, you apply them differently depending on the image. And you don't always end up like what you're looking at there. I also wound up, that's not showing. There we go. Also wound up with this thing. And some of this is kind of cool. You know, if I hit Command 1 and pan around, you can see the different things that are happening here. Now, I don't know if I really like that or not. So I'll back off that, take you back down to this more subtle, relaxed version. Okay, so lots to learn, lots to think about, and I got to show you how to use this app next, but I wanted you thinking, and you may notice the similarities between this and this, they're both pretty light, aren't they? If you work with heavy, dark colors, you don't get to play with the depth that's involved here. You don't get to see all of the underlying geometry unless you're working with low opacity. Hey, and that might suit you. There are infinite ways to work with these apps. And I mean infinite because they're generative apps. You're not going to use all 16.7 million colors in 3 different channels, multiply 16.7 time, qubit. And that's just the colors. How many objects? What kind of object? What size? The number quickly approaches infinity, or at least. Well, it gets high. So for right now, let's just say no one set of videos, no matter how complete, are even going to scratch the surface of what you can do with these apps. Now, I'm pretty much a rookie with this one, having only created 4 images. So let's get rolling. Your generative app should sit, your PolyMesh folder should sit inside your Documents folder. And I want you to save everything else inside this folder. There's going to be another folder made, and we'll talk about that and everything else that goes along with it in the next videos.